going to start with positions. So, and that, we think that's the last thing we're going to change in expenditures, maybe? And then we'll talk about balancing the budget.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Okay, positions. Just say, again, I have some concern about trying to quickly act on things the way we're doing here. And last time, I think the only reason, we were able to offer up those 8 roads positions so quickly is because we know that those and more have been unfilled for years, which is not about need, just about the practical nature of finding those people. But we did, okay, yeah, and on the list, if you go through the list, there's a number of the positions that I think nobody is questioning, like the EMS positions and the 911 positions. There are positions on there that are technically open at this moment, but offers have been made to people and start dates have been set. There are some on there where we're in the process of interviewing people. There are also some on there that are grant funded or in enterprise funds, so they have no impact on your operating plan. All that said, we had everybody look through their positions, and there were 2 positions that directors felt comfortable saying, right now, this situation, we'd be okay if you said you're going to take away funding for these. One was actually the survey position that I mentioned to you last time. Now, for Public Works, this is connected to an idea. We have budgeted, this is right, we budgeted for the equipment, but they don't have it yet. But they're saying, if that equipment's coming, we think we can do without the position. And the other is not quite the same situation, but sort of similar, a collections office position. We are in the process of implementing new collections software. So we're not there yet, but they believe that with that coming, that they could be okay with 1 fewer position. So that's where we are after trying to take a quick look at all this.
I apologize. One more time on those. Where's the DPW? What position are we talking about?
Second page, 6 or 7 down, says survey helper.
Got it. And the collection specialist is dependent on achieving the results of the software that we're putting in place.
Well, it's coming. I mean, there's no question
Right.
that that's happening.
Right.
It's just not in place now.
Right.
And I guess we would have to talk with Jenny about the details of,
Yeah.
does that mean we could take it now? I think that's what she's saying, though.
It doesn't show how long that position's been vacant, does it? The collection specialist?
Yeah, and I don't know.
Yeah.
That's recent.
Is it
This-
recently?
The person just left the position of recently.
Okay. So this one isn't a question of, it's been open a long time,
Yeah.
can we get by without
Right.
it? It's specifically tied to the new software.
Right, okay.
So roughly together between the 2, that's about 75,000?
And more, because there'd be benefits tied to them.
Any idea of like a general number or round number?
You could probably add another, 30 or 40,000 to that, roughly. We're
So-
going to work on more specific numbers, but for round purposes,
So roughly about 100,000 maybe? A little more?
probably around that would be
Okay.
good.
Yep, I think that would be reasonable for our purposes
Yep.
today. And as always, remember when we talk about benefits, we're self-insured, so we're applying an average.
Right.
We never know how much we're going to spend or save because of any one person.
Well, I'll make a motion to eliminate those positions and add that to the budget.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So we're below 10.
So 17 vacant positions, not including DPW, Rec and Parks, Public Safety. And we can only come up with 2 positions that was the feedback from the departments. And I see,
Okay, well, yeah, I struggle with the idea we only came up with 2. We're not starting from a place, I mean, I'm not starting from a place where I think that there is an abundance of unnecessary positions in the organization.
yeah.
In fact, I would not have expected to come back to you with 2.
Well, gentlemen, if nobody minds, I'll take the floor for several minutes, and I'll plunge in.
Bear
I'm
with
sorry.
me
I
before
apologize.
you
I
just
apologize.
take that. Putting us in an environment where we are right now, I want to be clear, at least in my view, that years ago, it was decided to professionalize our fire EMS in Carroll County, and it went through legislation and authorized, down in Annapolis to allow us to do that. There were things that were put in place while we were going through that process, like the ESAC and other things. But it was determined that Carroll County deserved and needed a fire EMS to ensure the care for Carroll Countyans. In doing that, it's the second largest department in Carroll County, outside of DPW. We did not have, I believe, a strong enough strategy to fund that during my tenure in the last term. We did not have a strong enough way of funding that and determined, well, you could say the writing was on the wall and we should have looked at revenue back then. Okay, we should have. We need to look at revenue one time, and I truly believe that over the next X amount of years, it could be 15, 20 years. If we would have done the appropriate adjustments then, we wouldn't be in the position we are now. But if you think about it, that's, I don't know, $13, $15 million, whatever it was. And then on top of that is Blueprint. So now you got 2 major things going on, and we're $10 million in the hole. So any revenue adjustments we need to make, I believe we need to make them in a sense that it's one time, and we're not going past, like next year, 2 years, we're gonna look at another way to mask the deficit that we have today. We should stop from masking the deficit. The decision on fire EMS was the correct decision. Legislation supported us, and I really appreciate the decisions made. However, we did not fund it appropriately. It wasn't funded, it was unfunded. We worked to come up with a solution. We did not come up with a holistic and final solution, and that put us where we are right now, in addition to Blueprint. So we don't want to be put in that position again. That's why I'm looking at a long-term solution, not to mask where we are today, just to get us through an FY25 budget, but a total budget that'll get us through the process to FY30 and beyond. So that's,
And
I
I
just wanted to
think
throw.
this spreadsheet will tell us, if we just fix fiscal year '25, and it's not some bigger changes on the years out, then I think we're making a mistake. But, let's go.
I'm making a mistake regarding
You don't use one-time money
Yeah.
for ongoing expenses.
Okay, I thought I wasn't
So
clear. Yeah.
if we would do that right now, put 9 million in one-time money in, the next years wouldn't change. And that tells us we're digging a hole. And I think that's happened in the past. I've complained about it in the past, and we just need to be conscious. I mean, it's just not, you know, I wouldn't go buy a car with payments and use a Christmas gift to make the first payment and say, don't worry, I'll make the rest. That's just poor financial thinking. So, go ahead.
All right, so I will be a couple of minutes because I want to explain how I came to what I'm thinking, not just to you gentlemen, but also to the public and to anybody who is watching. It's not a, this is not an argument that I like making, it's not an argument that I want to make, but I think that there's a necessity here, and it's in red up on this board, but so over the last couple of weeks, especially, everybody knows I pray pretty routinely, but over the last couple of weeks, I've been praying more than I typically do. And in particular, I've been praying to Saint Rita for her intercession. For anybody who's not Catholic, Saint Rita, among other things, is the patron saint of the impossible. And what we're dealing with right here is definitely a serious challenge. I've repeatedly prayed for her intercession to show us a way forward with this. Now, on Tuesday morning, during our recess in our budget workshop, all-day budget workshop on Tuesday, I found myself sitting on the benches outside of the commissioner chambers. I've really never done that before. I don't know why, but something just made me sit on this bench, and I look over at the wall, and anybody who has never been up to that floor, anybody in the public who's watching who's never been up to the third floor for the chambers, on that wall, there are an array of historical documents from across the history of America. And I sit down on the bench, and I just happen to sit in the right place and look across, and right in front of me is a Declaration of Independence. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at these documents, and I am reminded of the fact that it's not just a display, and it's not just history, but these are lessons for us. And so I found myself wondering about the first president, George Washington, and the first Congress, and I found myself thinking about, well, how was it when they were building this country, after they had passed the Constitution, after they had begun functioning as a country, how did they go about doing things? And I started thinking about the Whiskey Rebellion of 1791 to 1794. So effectively, after the American Revolution, between the states and the federal government, about $75 million of war debt had been accumulated. And I did a computation on an inflation calculator on the internet. $75 million in the 1790s is over $2.6 trillion today. So that's quite an amount of money that they had to contend with, quite an amount of debt. It was necessary debt because it was accrued during the war for their independence. And so the question obviously is, how do you go about paying for something like that? How do you go about even beginning to pay down a debt like that? And the solution at the time was to come up with a tax on whiskey. It was seen at the time as the least objectionable kind of tax because it wouldn't affect everyone, and that it was necessary to pay down the debt, and George Washington agreed with this. Farmers in western Pennsylvania in particular were not happy about this because where they lived, they were very far from cities, from urban centers. And so for them, it made more sense to turn their crops into whiskey and transport the whiskey than to try to transport the crops and save the crops. So long story short, 600 farmers in western Pennsylvania took up arms and they said, no, we're not going to pay this tax, we're not going to deal with this. And it wasn't easy for our founding fathers either. I mean, when you look at the first Congress and the members of Washington's administration, they had just fought a war in part over taxation. Here they were proposing a tax to pay down war debt that had accrued debt. So it was not an easy thing for anybody. And so President Washington led about 13,000 troops into western Pennsylvania, from Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and I think New Jersey. And some regular Army troops too. And there was never any major fighting or anything, but the farmers just said, okay, well, we're not going to deal with this anymore. So again, while what happened was certainly controversial, what they were faced with was the fact that they had war debt that they had to pay off. So with us today, we're looking, if we're using that as a lesson, with us today, we're looking at the deficit that we have today, which is now $9.9 million. And this is not a debt that any one of us would have chosen. As Commissioner Rothstein laid out, there are a number of circumstances beyond our control that put us where we are today, but we are where we are today, and it's our responsibility to do something about it. For me, looking at that number, as Commissioner Rothstein had said, such a huge part of that is fire and emergency services. We need ambulances, we need EMTs. And, we've been very, I think we've been very proficient over the last couple of weeks about trying to find areas to cut from the budget. And with what we've done today, I think we're up to somewhere around $8.6 or $8.7 million that we've managed to cut away from the budget. But we still end up in the situation that we're in. And so how do we overcome a negative $9 million deficit? And so again, going back to the lessons of history, the lessons of our founding fathers, I look back at the whiskey tax, which again, everybody, including the president, considered the least objectionable tax that you could pass to try to begin paying down the debt. So for us, I think about the least objectionable tax that we have. We can raise income tax, we can raise property tax, we can raise the recordation rate. Of all of those three, the recordation tax is the least objectionable because it affects the fewest possible people. Not everyone in the county is buying a house every day of the year. So we're currently at $5 per 500 of assessed value with our recordation. One of our neighbors, and I'm not going to name names, but one of our neighboring counties is at $7 per 500. Other counties also charge transfer fees on top of the recordation tax, and we do not. So I tried to pull together, I spent most of my day thinking about this yesterday, and I tried to pull together some quick numbers, and I thank Ted and Heidi for responding to me via email yesterday. Each quarter, each 25 cents of recordation tax amounts to about $690,000 in revenue. So we'd been thinking, one of the thoughts that we'd come away with on Tuesday was to look at three different scenarios. One of them being that we increase the property tax rate, the income tax rate, and the recordation rate. That model, that scenario, says that we raise the recordation tax rate to $6 per 500, which yields about $2.7 million. But an increase, if $7, instead of $6, $7, if we increase $5 to $7, that yields approximately $5.5 million. Now, when I did these numbers yesterday, we weren't down to 9.9, so you have to bear with my slightly belated math here. So if we were still working from the assumption of a $10.1 million deficit, if you take away $5.5 million, we're left with roughly $4.6 million. If we raise the recordation tax rate to $7 instead of $6, it being the least objectionable tax, it halves the deficit that we have right now, and that opens up a number of options for us about how to proceed. So I'm going to run through a couple of these really brief options that I put together in hopes that it may spur some discussion. So again, assuming we raise the recordation rate to $7 versus $5. First of all,
Can I
yes,
comment on
yes,
that piece?
yes, please.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair, that the $1, I think, and I can't remember, on a $400,000 house raised it $600. Now you're $1,200. You go to 4 digits, I noticed that on my settlement sheet. I'm not sure that that's fair, but
No, okay,
go ahead.
I take the point, but I'll continue. So
And I'd like to remind you, we have
Yes.
2 hours.
I will be done within 2 hours, I promise. I shouldn't need more than a couple more minutes. I'm down to the last couple things here. So, but I wanted to take us to how I came to this position as a matter of respect for everybody about how I got to where I am. But so again, assuming $7 or even $6.50, right? One option, the simplest option, and it's not a palatable option because it doesn't take care of things long-term, is to plug that 4.5, or would be 3 point something now with one-time revenue. That gets us through this year, but it does nothing for next year, and it doesn't solve the root problem that we have. One of the other scenarios we looked at was a 3-cent property tax increase. If we increase the recordation rate enough to, again, the least objectionable tax rate that we have, if we increase that enough, instead of a 3-cent property tax rate, it may be 1 or 2 cents. Now, if we do that, that goes, I think, instead of $10 a month, it may be $5 or $7 a month. And $60 a year for the average citizen is a lot better than $120 or $150. So and even if, being the case that we didn't do 2 cents, or maybe we didn't do all $7 in the recordation tax, we may be able to get that number down to about $2 million, and that also means that we could use surplus revenue to bridge the gap in a much less deleterious and difficult way than we would otherwise. Now, what we could also do, and again, it's not taking care of things long-term, but if we can get the number down to about $2 million, we could ostensibly do something like pulling money out of PFAS and plugging the gap for this year. Again, it's not a sound thing, but it does get us through this year, and it gets us close enough to zero, but...
Is
and-
PFAS
yes.
in the operating budget?
No, but I'm...
So it doesn't make any
Well,
difference?
like I said, it doesn't make a difference long-term. But if
It
we...
doesn't make a difference this year.
Right. So if...
2 million would go into general fund.
Right, and we would use that to...
Yeah, who cares?
So it's one-time funds.
If we go
Yeah.
that way, and there, but...
Yeah. If we don't care about the fund balance, and we're irresponsible enough to use one-time money to plug operating money,
Then use
why
one-time
do we
money.
care if the fund balance
Right.
is 5 million? I
Right.
mean, to flip numbers to justify.
But going
Yes,
down,
just-
But
going
go
down the
ahead.
path,
Just
yeah.
throwing
Go
out
ahead.
options.
Just let you finish.
And so the last 2 points that I'll make, and this is where I came to with all of this, right? Again, if we are able to figure out a way to address the recordation tax, to increase that because it's the least objectionable, and we're able to work the property tax, so that, because again, that affects the household rather than the individual. If we're able to work the two of these somehow, we don't have to touch income tax rates, which affects every working person in the county. And so basically, that's where I was trying to head with this, is that for us, the recordation tax is our whiskey tax, so to speak. If we can get ourselves to a place where we're not touching income tax rates, but we're also addressing things down the road a little bit, then I think we are in a far better position than we otherwise would be. And, you know, again, I can certainly understand the disagreement with going from 5 to 7, but if we did, that makes things a heck of a lot easier with everything else. And again, we're still lower than other counties, and we don't have a transfer fee tax, whatever you want to call it, on top of that, in addition to our recordation. And so that's my case, in hopes that it'll generate some discussion.
Well, you're making good points. You really are. And I appreciate everything from the prayers to sitting on the bench and everything in between. The recordation, I understand that, comparison. I think keeping it, if we're going to make that adjustment, making an adjustment to $1, not 2, because it does get to a point of, I don't want to say no return, but, you want people to purchase homes and have the ability to buy those homes. So, $1 for a $400,000 home is $800, for a $300,000 home is $600. I understand the argument about income tax, and I agree with you, because you're right, it hits everybody. And it's a challenge. The thing is, income tax, the last time it was increased was 20 years ago. And it was increased in such a large amount, from 2.85 to 3.05. We're allowed to have a ceiling of 3.20. We're well below that allowable ceiling. So in FY '04, it was increased 0.2% or whatever that is, 2.85 to 3.05.
7%.
7%. And then it was reduced in 14 and 15, FY 14 and 15, just a little bit, just to show a good gesture that we're reducing income tax. Not a whole lot of dollars, like $10, $20, but just, it's a gesture. The property tax, again, the last time it was increased was in 97? No, I apologize.
97.
In '06 was personal property tax.
Well, that was
No,
personal.
so real property was increased in 97. Yeah, that makes sense. It was decreased, again, by a small amount, again, to show the gesture of, we want to decrease taxes for our community in 12 and 13. If we brought back the real property to where it was in 1997, and the recordation, I think we would be able to meet the demands that we have in this year's budget and next year's budget and going into '27. I believe. Yeah, so, see, it, and I can, so it's saying what you're saying, but it's going a little bit further in property tax and going a little bit less in recordation, and not touching income tax, and not touching one-time funds, which just paints lipstick on a pig, and we gotta stop doing that. But it's meeting what you're saying, except for that one piece, so.
And I'm not sure if I did the math right, but I liked the one thing you said, unfortunately. Property tax at 2 cents. If we did property tax at 2/3 of this, recordation tax stay at the 6, I just think it's too much of a jump. Double the income tax we had on here, I think we'd be within about 2 million, and then you guys can throw stuff. I still wouldn't advocate one-time money. I would say, can't the budget office figure out 2 million? I know. I
That's,
know.
isn't that getting a little bit out of,
Yeah,
How close do we need to get? Below 1 million before you can, or what did Richard Pryor do? 1 cent on everything and he got rich.
So answer to your first question, I would not be comfortable with that.
Okay.
except, You know, as we've talked about before, you know, if there were a bunch of places I could go and say,
Oh, I
you know
know.
what, we could take some out there, but there aren't easy things left.
We beat on them.
So
I don't know what we would do that wouldn't be what I would consider a policy decision.
what would that show right now? No, okay. So it really is,
Scroll back up.
Let's just
So-
skip
so you
fiscal year
did-
25 and 26
You
is good.
did 2/3. Oh, okay, there's, I'm looking at the wrong lines. Gotcha. Where's the income tax line?
17.
That's property tax. What did you want for income tax? I was still working on property
Income
tax.
tax, you had at 0.01%, and I said make it 0.02.
Okay.
That adds about 300,000 in.
Okay, and remember with income tax, you only get half impact in the
Right.
first year of the change.
right.
So it'll have a bigger impact in 26 and beyond than it does in
Yeah,
25.
yeah, it's only half this year. On the sheet last night, you had 329,000 the first year.
Yes,
So I was saying if we double that, that adds another 329,000
right.
to that year. And then more next year, which helps us. And I thought somebody said the average income in Carroll County, that was $11, so now we're less than 25.
That's based on household.
Hmm?
That's total household.
I can't,
Yeah.
That was based on total household, not individual income.
yeah. Right. Yeah, so that's better. But so what's that get us to, 2 million?
Just shy.
So, I, that, to me, if we gotta fix that with one-time money, but the problem is, if we fix it right, then fiscal year '27 would be right.
So I think, again, to reiterate, I mean, I don't think that the income tax rate is the way to do this. Because if we go back to the recordation and the property tax, I think 27 was also balanced, if I remember correctly.
It-
But why
but-
not income tax? The thing about income
Yes.
tax, property tax, that hits my grandmother. A lot of people my age don't even file income tax. They don't have to. So this isn't gonna hit a lot of the seniors. I know a lot, my sister doesn't file, and, a lot of people are below the minimum to file, and so that's why I'm thinking the income tax is softer on some senior people. And I file, so not me, Commissioner Rothstein.
I didn't say anything.
But it doesn't help me. But that was my thought on the income tax, is it
I
spreads it around a little bit.
So,
You know, some of the renters, some of the, living with their mom, they get hit with income tax if they're working. And some of the seniors don't. That was my thought with that. I didn't explain it very well.
no, that's
My-
okay.
my
But I
opinion-
do like, and Commissioner Guerin has said this, we need to prepare people. I almost like saying, they cut it 3 cents, we put back 2, and depending, in the next 2 or 3 years, we might have to do the other penny, but we think we're close. And then hopefully that's in everybody's head.
You know,
And again,
Commissioner,
you said 1, or did you say 2? It's
It
like,
could be 1 or 2. I was
it's
thinking,
like $10 a month, you know? Which is $10, but
and the way that I'm thinking about it is that, you know, I mean, again, I hate saying this. I don't see, you know, the path forward beyond this, and to make this, you know, this is going to affect people, and how do we make it affect people in the least way possible?
I understand that, but we've added $30 million in EMS, which I
Right.
think everybody favors.
Right.
And I'm shocked, when the past commissioners did it, I assumed we'd be double the bottom line. I didn't think we'd get away with paying 1/3 of it in revenues.
And,
So,
yeah,
I think
Right.
we're getting EMS, we're also getting Blueprint, we're also getting quality of life, Bob, and the sheriff, and the taxpayers are paying for 1/3 of EMS. I think that's a pretty good deal.
And my challenge is, if we don't do it right, which we hadn't done it right because we didn't pay for the fire EMS up front with appropriate revenue coming in, or and making the adjustments, we're going to create a situation where we're going to put taxes in place now, we're going to use one-time money to mask something, and then we're going to have to put taxes in place some other time. And to me, it's sticker shock, you know? And if we didn't do this and we put just one-time money, by the time we do have to put revenue in place, because we will have to, it'll be some serious sticker shock. We may not be here, but we owe it to our county, again, to provide the services. I'm not for cutting people, because you cut people, you know, you can't provide services for the county. I think we've streamlined everything we can. So now it's, like Commissioner Kyler said, now it's time to figure out, okay, if this is the bottom line in our budget and expenses, how are we going to
Yeah,
fix it?
I
So-
don't know on expenditures what we haven't looked at, you know, and I said that in this morning's meeting. Nobody has gotten everything they wanted. The sheriff didn't, EMS didn't, most of the departments didn't, none of the departments did. Community college didn't, the library didn't, the school didn't. Nobody got everything they asked for. I don't remember that happening before. I think people would say, oh my gosh, you threw money at, pick something, EMS, you threw money at Public Works, but you cut other people. I think we've cut everybody we fund.
You know, kind of on that point, you know, you asked, you know, where could the budget office just come up with the rest of the money? And I'm saying expenditure side, I don't see us doing that. But if we get to a place where we're between $1 million and $2 million we need to figure out, and you feel like you've done everything that you're going to do, we could adjust the revenue projections by $1 million. We brought you the number we brought you because we think it's the right number to bring you. But I'm not going to sit here and say, I know that we've got it right.
Now,
You know, so we up the projection, we up the risk, but
yeah,
quite possibly just fine.
and I don't want to have you change your mind, but when you adjust revenue like that, is that ongoing?
Yes.
Okay, so that would help fiscal year '27 too.
Yeah, whatever we do
Yeah,
would carry
gotcha.
through all
Yeah,
the years.
but you did this, and I have the strongest faith in you and your team to providing us the projected revenues.
Yeah.
So making an adjustment, you know, I mean,
No, I'm not,
it's just, again, it's taking away the value of what you provide us up front.
But
And
I think,
I don't want to do that.
but Commissioner Rothstein, I think particularly if we let fund balance alone, so
Well,
the
yeah,
county has that fund balance in case we need it, then you can maybe get a little tighter.
Yeah, and
Where
that's
if we
exactly-
reduce that, you can't do both.
right, that's exactly on point. And you've heard me say before, when I advocated for adding 5% to our
Right.
fund balance as a policy, and one of the things I told you is, it's a lot easier to be more aggressive on your revenue projections when you know that you have money
so
sitting
what
there.
he said, that would be your strategy, and
Yeah,
that.
as long as we don't use that all up, then we
Okay.
do have some place to go.
Okay.
But I thank you for your thought there, but I'll just go back, you know, if we were saying, can you up your projections by $10 million, I would be very, very reluctant to do that.
Okay, I get you, and I understand. It's just the first time I've heard you say it that way, and I don't like it, so.
And what we're talking about here, you know, if we did, say, $1.5 million, would be, you know, 1/3% change or something
Right.
like that.
Okay.
You know, it's not, there's no way I can say, can't do that.
No, I got you.
What if we did a $6.25 recordation tax, a 2-cent property tax, and no income tax?
$6.25?
I'm trying.
Tom, what do you
I
think?
know, it's just, I get what you're
Is that
trying to
less
do.
painful?
My problem is, I don't want to add a tax after this.
I got you.
I mean, and my challenge is, we're gonna
I don't think he's in it.
have to. Whereas the last year we're in office, we're just gonna mask it.
Recordation, what was the,
Recordation is $6.25, property tax at 2 cents, and then no income tax
I
increase.
mean,
there you go.
I know what you're saying, trying to do.
A little worse than we would be. Although for 25, not so much.
Still doable, but
So that's
it's
that's 2% property and
6 1/4,
six and a quarter,
Right.
and it's
and
taking.
no income.
And no income.
Wow. Could you do the bottom line again? That's-
Turns out pretty much the same.
Yeah, it does.
Give or take,
Roughly similar.
yeah.
It does.
And now if you do something with the 1.6, it's not gonna quite fix 27. It'll be within 600,000.
But again, that's projection.
And I'd love to see 30 under 20. It's scary. It might do that. If, the 1.6 might bring that under 20. Now, well, no. If we do one-time money, it doesn't fix any of the future years. But if you adjust revenue,
It would,
yeah.
so, okay. What are some other thoughts? I mean, we got,
Yeah, what do you guys think?
Well, I'm just going to make this comment, which doesn't get terribly specific, but I'd like, if we're going this route, I'd like to stay away from income tax. I mean, you know, we can sit there and we can go, well, it's only $20, but, you know, that $20, and I'm not criticizing any of us in this room, I'm just making the comment, that $20 doesn't live in a vacuum these days. Groceries are up 40%. We've got all these other massive increases, and I realize that touches everybody, but when you're looking at people, and I know some of us were able to attend that event at Exploration Commons. We were talking about Alice, which was asset-limited, income-constrained employed. I mean, you're talking individuals that one bad paycheck or one car breakdown, and they're toast. And there's more of those folks in this community than I think anybody wants to realize. I know there's projections of how that all gets put together. And obviously, you know, we can get into that, and yes, and it doesn't just hit one income bracket or another, but I think that that's something we have to take a serious consideration of, and I'm not suggesting we're not, I'm just making that comment.
What do you?
no, it's, I'll tell you just real quick, because that's powerful, and I agree with you. One of the first documents that I read when I took office 5 years ago, whatever it was that Alice report. That meant more to me than anything else to understand this county. And it's very valuable, and it was also very daunting to know the impact.
That is.
And so, yeah, that was, like I said, that was the first thing I read. And if we believe collectively that not adjusting income tax will provide that, then I'm okay with that. And I understand, because both of you are making the same argument.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. You know,
I still think it's
yeah.
softer on seniors.
Okay.
But what would you think of, stay away from income tax, but go from 6.25 to 6.50?
You're looking at what, recordation?
Recordation, yeah. Stay off of income tax, and that has us,
I mean, I think the challenge is, and it's the reality we all know, is you don't have any inventory to begin with.
I know.
So, you know, where does that put us?
Right.
Interest rates are doing what? That's anybody's guess. I don't think they're going down anytime soon as much as we'd like to see that. Unless we decide to exponentially start pushing building, which that's not going to happen no matter how fast
Right.
anybody can snap their fingers. I don't know. I think it might be too much to take. I mean, now Commissioner Vigliotti, didn't you say there's a surrounding county that is at 7?
Correct, $7,
Who?
Okay.
Okay.
Frederick.
Yeah, okay, so they're at 7, and they also do not have transfer. So.
But I think,
Yeah, they don't.
and I agree with you. The thing that I will say about Frederick, and I know we all know this, but just to put it out there for everybody else, Frederick, you do not, they have a lot more industrial and commercial. You've got a lot of tech companies, pharmaceuticals. We don't have that.
That's
So they've
right.
got that helping run the engine that we're
That's right.
missing right now.
Yeah, they're,
Ed, recordation tax, with the question of the houses on the market, interest rates, whatever, is it safe to think we're gonna make that much out of recordation tax?
What concerns I have about recordation would be more about just what the market's going to do in general
Yeah.
than I am about the impact of this change.
Okay,
kind of where Commissioner Gordon was going.
Yeah,
but I
'cause-
guess what I'm saying is, are we better off to bet on income tax funding what we show and we think than recordation tax? Or you think, the market's gonna stay good enough, we're gonna see this revenue?
Well, I don't want to say that too confidently, because
Okay.
you remember, when we talked about recordation, and we said the revenue's dropping, we totally expected that. The big question, though, is where is it going to drop to? And I don't have an answer to that question. So, remember, we settled in at about $14 million a year. But if you remember the history I showed you, after the last big upswing, we thought we would settle in at $13 million a year, and we actually went down to 7. I don't see that happening, but I have no way to tell you it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
That's about as much as you're going to say about income tax projections.
Yeah, well, similar uncertainty, yeah.
I like this scenario because we're not taking property tax back to where it was. We've still got, if we have to do another third down the road, then we're only, you know, if we have to do it again, we're only back to where they were. What do you think, Commissioner Garing? I know, I'm asking you.
So, yeah, I'll make a few comments. First of all, I want to address this notion that we were looking at any point during the budget process, we were looking at sending people home. We were never looking at cutting a position with somebody in it.
Nope.
So I want to make that clear. The other thing is, you know, this issue of services keeps coming up. Our job as commissioners is to make sure that people are getting their money's worth. That's our job. We hire people to provide the services, and I'll always believe that that's the case. Last year, I sat here and I talked about how I thought we needed to make some deeper cuts, some unpopular ones, because next year we might be looking at decreased revenue and even a tougher situation. And unfortunately, I was right. I think I said that on May 11th of last year. So I'm saying the same thing now. I do not believe that, and you can look at the projections, my intent for this year was that we would make some unpopular decisions here in Westminster and in the county office building perhaps, and wait and see what happens with this very odd situation regarding revenue, which I just can't quite explain myself, and I don't think a lot of people can. I see us looking at raising taxes now, and you look out 3 or 4 years and it doesn't really improve the situation too much, which is why from the beginning of the budget process I've been advocating some reductions in costs. Again, I will once again go through this list, and if anybody wants to ask me again what I'm willing to cut, I can refer them to this minute of this budget session, because from this point forward I think the onus is going to be on trying to explain to the citizens more so why we're raising their taxes than it's going to be, well, what did one commissioner, you know, what was one commissioner willing to cut or not. I will say again, I think this is the year to make some really tough choices. Transit, I mentioned last week, or maybe it was Tuesday, that budget goes out of control after this year. It would be prudent to reduce that funding this year and have a serious conversation about what we want to do. I advocated cutting a very expensive project, the road, Georgetown Boulevard extension. You know, again, $2 million. I don't believe we should be paying for it. Positions, I would have liked to have gone deeper on positions. We have 17 empty positions. We were able to come up with 2 to eliminate, but it still seems like a lot of positions that we're carrying from year to year. And it'll be interesting to see which one of those gets filled, because they're not getting filled.
Okay, most of those positions are not long-term empty positions. There are some.
Okay. PFAS. Again, whether you call it one-time money or not, you know, PFAS is the boogeyman right now, and nobody really knows what the heck's going to happen with it. We've gone through this before with the federal government. They're telling us something's really bad, and then, you know, who's going to pay for it and how, we don't really know. One of the most unpopular comments I've made since this process is the pay increases. I would love to give every employee a 4% pay increase. I don't think we can if we're serious about trying to get things under control for this year. So that comes up with, that's roughly about $5 to $6 million in savings. We use one-time funds to meet this deficit, and then we have to wait and see what happens with this revenue. And if we feel as though you've got to increase taxes on people, whatever you want to call it, taxes, you know, fees, property tax, whatever, then we have that conversation with the public. So I hope we're not sitting here next year, regardless of what we do today, and looking at the same situation. I just worry that we will be. We are stuck with some really difficult decisions, I understand that, and it seems as though there hasn't been a whole lot of foresight from previous boards. I mean, practically none at all, which is unfortunate. That's the situation we're in. But I'm opposed to raising taxes, and I've offered some suggestions on things we can cut or reduce until we can make a better decision. But I understand there's 5 of us here, and it takes 3 to make decisions, and that's where we are.
Yeah, and I appreciate all that. I feel like we made some good cuts all over the place. Maybe not enough. To me, it's a compromise to go to 4%, but one that I can live with, and we cut out money doing that. PFAS and Georgetown won't change this budget. Maybe if there's some bond money, it might change it slightly, but I just, and I understand what you're saying, and I think that's one of the reasons I like the 2 instead of 3 on property, because we're gonna have tough decisions again next year. And I don't wanna do it too much, but I feel like if we end up, 2 more years, we have to do the other penny, it's justified. I feel like, I think we beat up everything, including the extra things we were asked for. I'm not sure what more we can do in good faith. And again, I'm like, I think we're not hitting the taxpayers nearly as hard as other places have. It's hard. And I never wanted to be in this chair talking about raising taxes in Carroll County. I mean,
I believe
now,
you.
I wouldn't promise I wouldn't, because I said, particularly with EMS, $30 million is a big nut to cover with no plans. And like I say, I'm pleasantly surprised that we didn't have to cover 20 this year. And I think part of that is because we really beat on things. But, yeah, okay.
No, just something again, to share. The cost of living adjustment, when we made that significant change in August of '22 is because our workforce was in dire needs. We were not able to retain the workforce to meet the services of Carroll County. And in order to make the appropriate decision, make that decision, we decided that. Prior to that, we never went above 3.55. And in fact, when I first started, it was 1.5, 1.5, 2, 0 regarding cost of living adjustments. That's why we were lost so many folks. We couldn't retain them. So we made that 10%. I don't want to make another 10% adjustment down the road, whether it's this board or the next or the following board. But that was a hard decision made. And there were some really good decisions that we made, the last board and the board before that and the board before that. There's also decisions, whether you can go back to Man Valley, who I really don't have much insight on, or anything else from every board. They made the best decisions with the information they had. I believe the last board, we made not the best decisions when it came to funding fire EMS. It was unfunded. It was recognized as going to be the largest or second largest commitment in the county, and we did not have the funds to do it, but we still drove forward in doing it.
And I'm glad we did.
Huh?
I'm glad we have it.
Well, so absolutely. I mean, the county deserves and needs it, but we didn't have it funded. And that put us in a predicament where we are. We could have made revenue adjustments then that could have made, answered that. Instead, we put one-time money. And that's been going on for the last, I don't know how many years, and finally, it's gotten to a point, it's wrong. We need to say, we're done. Last year, we put $9 million against it, and all it did was mask the problem that we're situated today. But to think the cost of living, there was 5 years, over the last 14 years, that our workforce got 0. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more of those years, over the last 20, they got 1.5 or below. I mean, I get cost of living, adjustments with my pension, and most people do. So there's cost of living adjustments made in Maryland government, state government. I believe that our workforce deserves it. They deserve the 5.55%. They're not going to get it with these numbers, but that's where I'd like to have gotten them. So that's why I non-concurred with the 4, because I believe it should have been higher. I don't believe I'm going to get past 4, and then, like you said, Georgetown Boulevard has been in the master plan for many, many, many years, and it's one-time funds or a capital project for safety, not for development, and that's what it is. It's a process to connect Liberty Road, Georgetown Boulevard to Progress. That's what it is with a circle. PFAS, you're right, it's a gift that keeps on giving. We still don't have it fully defined. It's getting closer, but it is, again, capital dollars, one-time funds, to identify how we're going to have to not just lessen the PFAS, but identify the PFAS and where it lies. So, I mean, I understand hard decisions, but each one of these, transportation, that's a tough one. I agree. Are we making the best decision with transportation? I'm not sure. I keep going back and forth with that one. But out of everything that you wrote, or that you said, foresight from previous boards, I agree with you. One-time funds, I agree that decisions are made. Cost of living, we obviously different on that. And the positions, the 17 positions, they're vacant today. They're not going to be vacant tomorrow, and that's my thoughts on that. So so every one of those points I understand, I recognize, but there's a purpose, and yes, previous boards have made mistakes and didn't have the foresight, and was it the last board? Yes, it was the last board that did not have the foresight on how to fund fire EMS. That is very clear, and however many more times I'll say it, but that's very clear. But we also didn't have the foresight of maintaining our workforce, and that's why we had to go to that 10%, because we needed to right-size our workforce to provide the services for our county, so.
And I think Commissioner Guerin made a couple good points. We did not cut any employees. We cut vacant positions. And I don't think we've reduced services, and maybe some of the people are gonna have to work a little harder to make sure it happens, but I don't think we reduced services either. So now, I got a question. How do we get to 941? I missed that.
That's the 650.
Oh,
And
we
the
went from
2
6 and a
Oh,
quarter.
that is at 6, that's if it's
I got it.
650. Okay, six and a quarter, it's $1 million something, and, okay,
Got it.
gotcha, okay. So does anybody,
You go back down to that bottom line, please. So you believe making revenue forecast, we're going to see a difference in 25 and 27?
In every year.
Well, in every year, but 25, 27, the expectations would be black or close to.
27 is bigger than 25, isn't it? The deficit.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Well, there's your under 20 million for FY '30.
you're confusing me. You had 941, you took $1 million off.
He changed the revenue
So-
forecast.
Added
so-
$1 million.
So now we're slightly plus. Okay. And 27's very close, and 30's under 20. And that's at 6.5 recordation?
Yes.
Yep,
6.5 and two of the 3 cents property and no income,
correct.
which I think the consensus is no income. The no
Which is
taxes
interesting,
at
because
all.
I walked in the
So-
room, thinking one thing, and the way you described it, the way
Oh, yeah,
Commissioner
yeah,
Gordon
yeah.
described it,
Yeah,
I walked away from it thinking it a different way. And I'm telling you, that Alice report sticks with me a lot. But hitting individuals,
I didn't think we could
Yeah.
do the 2 cents instead of 3,
So-
and that,
yeah.
that's good. So does somebody want to make a motion, or we want to keep talking, or?
Can you scroll just a, can you, yeah, the revenues again, adjusted revenue, okay, that's actually where you had it, okay.
Yeah.
Was anybody able to check into the question I had on Tuesday about whether or not we could reduce a tax rate in the midst of a budget year rather than prior to passing a budget?
Property tax, I don't believe you could. I still want to verify this, but we did think about recordation, and you set that, you collect it, there's nobody else involved. So I would guess that mechanically you can, although I would say there'd be good reasons not to do that. You know, if nothing else, if you change it in the middle, say you change it October 12th, somebody bought a house on October 11th, and they're going to say, wait a second, why October 12th? And I'm not sure you want that. If you do it with the start of a fiscal year, somebody could still buy a house the day before, but I think everybody could understand a fiscal year makes sense.
I was just curious, thank you.
And all of it we can change next year.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And Commissioner Rothstein, you talked about EMS on the last board and beat
Yeah.
yourself up. We also have the state that told our last board, you won't pay any more for Blueprint. We
Exactly.
promise.
I know.
And that didn't last. Well, the first time that it needed money, that was over.
Yeah, that ended up being a herd of blind elephants in the room.
Well, you know, to be fair to them, I'm not sure that they promised us anything. They just said,
They said.
the analysis at this moment says you
Yeah.
won't need to do anything.
But that's also why there was more comfort in dealing with the unfunded requirements.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I've said early on, and, you know, and you did correct me saying, well, we still didn't have a real plan. I said, I understand, but, you know, there was less of a concern, but that coupled with the Blueprint is just out of control. And that's where we're at. I mean, yes, I wish I had the foresight, knowing that we'd be funding Blueprint, or foresight on a lot of things. We didn't. We made the best decision we could with the information we had.
So we blame the last commissioners, we blame the state. Our current state's attorney told us to blame the state, but prior to that, he was a delegate, so are we blaming him?
Hey, you want me to throw one at you? I'll throw one at you. The former Commissioner Frazier had the foresight.
Yep,
He had the foresight,
he said it more than once.
and whether we want to agree with him or not, because he was sitting right here about how are we going to pay for this? And he,
Who?
Commissioner Frazier, Commissioner Dennis Frazier, had the foresight on how we were going to pay for this, and we couldn't get there, and he disagreed with the budget, and when it was passed, he voted against it.
Yep.
Because his concern was not having the revenue necessary to pay for the fire EMS. So regardless of thoughts and ideas of individuals, I call it like it is, and that's, I mean, yeah, he was here, I was down there somewhere, and, yeah. So,
Yeah, I forgot he
Yep.
voted against the budget.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I do know he said, we're not paying for this.
right,
We need to.
Right.
I remember that.
and now, we're in a position where we've got to pay for it, so. Yeah, some people don't like people, but other people just have to have the ability to recognize.
So we've
What-
got about an hour to
what is-
finish this today, and then you're gonna go on the road, and then we're gonna, May 6th, have a public hearing, and then we meet next day? Thursday.
No, it's 16th, maybe?
So 10 days later, we meet after the public hearing and make final adjustments.
Right, and actually, like other public hearings, you leave the record open
Yes,
for a
okay,
while
gotcha.
after the
Yeah,
actual
yeah, yeah.
day. We don't typically get a lot of comments, but sometimes, you
Yep.
know, there are some comments.
Can you remind us again what Tuesday looks like? I just can't remember from last year. I can go back and look at the video, but we're just presenting the proposed budget, so
Yeah, that's Tuesday morning,
it's
right?
Tuesday morning.
Today.
Yeah, Ted just,
Yeah, are we-
similar to what he did with the budget,
Yeah.
recommended budget, it'll be a similar kind of presentation.
And what I do that day, and of course, you know, it's your budget, not mine, so if the board wants to make comments about the budget, you know, that can happen on Tuesday morning. But what I will do that day and in the 5 meetings in the libraries is try to share what changes are built into this budget, give people some context for, you know, why they are what they are, implications of, you know, making or not making changes.
So in theory, that's like a 1-hour meeting.
Probably more.
A little more?
And the release goes a little faster because in the meetings out in the community, there's going to be some questions back and forth.
So for a 2-cent property tax increase, what does that look like for the average citizen? Do you have the numbers?
Yeah, so for somebody who owns a home that's $350,000, it's wait a second, I apologize, it's $70
A year?
a year.
For the,
Yeah, for somebody who owns a home, $350,000, it is,
cents.
for 2 cents, is $70. For someone who owns a home for $250,000, it's $50. And someone who owns a home that's $450,000, it's $90 a year. Yeah, this is all a year. Oh, I apologize, I didn't realize you had that up there, sorry.
Visual and audible.
That's right. So,
And somewhere in the things we've given you, you do have this
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
Yes. probably have it right here,
Somewhere in here.
but I knew he had it on top. So you comfortable with this yet? You're the motion maker.
I'm not sure comfortable is the right word, but there's simple, I guess the old phrase
It's
is
all been compromised.
ghastly arithmetic.
You can ask my two brothers and two sisters. I
ghastly?
compromised more in the last month than I did growing up with them.
Bless you.
God bless you.
I'm
Ghastly.
learning.
Is that with two S's?
Just one. Like ghost, but with an A. Ghastly, ghostly.
Oh, with a T.
Yep.
Got it.
You think recordation, so you're pretty confident that recordation at $7 instead of $6.25 or $6.50 would be too much?
Well, I don't think that gets us off of the 2 cents on property. So why do it? It's just, that market's so tight now.
Yeah.
In order for us to put in place transfer taxes or fees, whatever we call it, it has to go through legislation.
Yeah.
That ain't gonna happen.
No, and I
No.
don't think it,
And
I don't
so,
think we should.
no, neither do I. But my point is, that's not gonna happen. When you look at comparative to other jurisdictions like Frederick, you gotta look
We're
at,
still
okay,
cheaper.
what do they have in addition to that? Frederick, you're right, they have 0, so they have 7, then they bumped it up. Again, it's understanding taxes and fees associated with taxes and fees and everything else around it. Because people like to compare one place to another, and it's, like Commissioner Gordon said, there's a lot of biotech and growth that's happening on the corridor on 270 in Frederick. So, yeah.
Could we see the bottom line again, please? Thank you. And part of the reason why, if I remember correctly, and do correct me if I'm wrong, part of the reason why 28, but especially 29 and 30 seem to be so far off is we simply don't have the information or the data projections to put in yet. Like, we're less aware of what's going to happen in 30 than we are, say, in 27 or
Well,
26.
Yes, that's true, but I think
But also there are bonds that are going to start having to be paid off as well in
Right.
29 and
You have
30.
debt service hitting, and there's things like, in your property tax, we have lower projected growth in those later years than we have in the early years. But I don't think that's so much a lack of information as, do we really think we can expect to see the same kind of growth that we've been seeing in recent years? Now, maybe we'll get there and find out that we are, but it doesn't seem likely.
So I apologize, maybe lack of information was, incomplete information maybe is a better way of putting it. No.
Oh, we always have that.
I'm aghast.
Anybody have any other additional thoughts or?
I don't. I think the consensus is no income tax. I would debate that, but I shouldn't because the consensus is no. And recordation, I think, we're lower than the history lesson taught us. So that's good, I think. And our bottom line's okay. And I like adjusting the revenues a little, tweaking them.
Basically walk through what you shared.
I'm sorry?
This walk through, it's like that's the means to that end, the way you described it. I could use some whiskey right now, but that's a topic for a different time.
I think maybe what I want to do before we go any further with this, for the sake of the discussion, for the sake of anybody listening, I want to run through some of the things that we've done over the last several weeks as a way to remind ourselves and also to remind anybody listening how we ended up where we are right now, if that's okay with everybody. Right. So we started out this entire process with a $12.4 million budget deficit. We cut ag preservation by $2.5 million. We reduced the current number of defense positions that were supposed to be allocated from 84 to 60. We curtailed salary increases from 5.5 to 4%. We cut the reserve for contingency. We increased the rate of fleet labor from $75 to $95 an hour. We reduced or held spending levels at or closer to FY 2024 levels. 2 parks, Union Mills and Northwest Regional Park, that were slated to be either developed or expanded are no longer in the budget. We removed 8 positions from the Department of Public Works. We removed the collection specialist and the survey helper positions, which are also vacant positions today. We discussed the paying down of debt, but that doesn't give us the immediate kind of flexibility that we need. We asked about how property assessments were going to affect revenue, but they don't have the impact that we hoped that they would. We asked about the governor's supplemental budget, but that's going to have little to no impact. We asked about the additional blueprint funding from the state, but that's not going to have much of an impact. We talked about how over the course of the past year, we had merged the departments of planning and land management, and that was some but not significant savings. And we talked about the potential of trying to raise fees at the landfill, but that's not a good idea in the marketplace where we find ourselves. And so in my mind, that's more or less how we came to the place where we
Well,
are now.
No,
And-
I
yeah,
mean,
I'm sorry.
but we added. You said what we took away and what we changed, but we also
What did I miss?
added. Well, we added $6 million to CCPS.
Right.
We took away half of what the library was requesting. That was in the recommended budget. We added, what else did we add? We added things. We had the $6 million, which was the biggest.
The position. of
We
the state's
added
attorney's
the
office.
state's attorney's office position. We
Deputy chief and.
we added the deputy chief,
4
was another
positions in
position.
EMS.
right.
Graded.
Ads are on.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, we've got it up on
Oh, okay.
the screen.
yeah, what she
I think,
has.
yeah. we were-
So what you threw out there was great, but again,
I was talking about I'm talking about the
Yeah,
cuts
yeah,
and the.
Yeah,
right.
but in order-
Not the increases, right?
right, but that's great,
We added money to.
but we added all of that
Right.
to that, and that's where,
Yep.
so, okay.
Like I was saying earlier too, a huge part of that is fire and emergency, part of it at least is fire and emergency services, and that seems to be, as you had said, that's the second biggest department we have now.
Mhm.
And, as I said, you can't be without ambulances, you can't be without EMTs, again, just to reference a discussion I'd had with one of our chiefs at one of our fire companies, You know, they have an ambulance that, there have been times in the past they couldn't send out the ambulance, and they may have had a driver, but they didn't have a paramedic for the back of it. And that means that somebody else has to respond, which means that that place is not responding to a call somewhere else. And so for me, again, it's to use the historical example, the whiskey tax and the war debt. For me, this is fire and EMS that in my mind, the only way I can understand this is that, we are trying to fund the Department of Fire and Emergency Services primarily. And again, we can't be without ambulances or EMTs.
Right.
I mean, I'm speaking to the chiefs of those companies and the volunteers in those companies. They need the help. I mean, and even them, right? And again, I'm not trying to be unkind or anything. It's an aging volunteer force. And while they do have younger people who are coming in, it's not at the same rate as it was
Right.
20 or 40 years ago. And we can't be without ambulances and EMTs.
Commissioner Garin gave us some data this morning that showed it's having a positive effect.
Yeah, we're going in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah, it does seem to be going in the right direction. Unfortunately, I think the discussion regarding FADOs is far from over.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be done with that discussion anytime soon, and I think we'll probably hear from some of the companies here shortly on that one.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a tough one. That's a very tough one for the
Yep.
stations to deal with right now.
Yeah, like we said, making the decision to develop the fire EMS was the right decision to make for Carroll County. And I don't think anybody questions that and applauds all the work that was done, again, with the delegation, and legislation that was put in, with our folks, the hiring process. Chief Robinson's, to me, phenomenal. His hands are definitely full. His plate's very full. The funding of it all was very difficult, and now it's got to get done. So, and a lot of this shows that. And then the other large piece is the schools. And, they were requesting 10.8 above what we were looking to provide them, and what we're looking to provide them was above and beyond the maintenance of effort that we are obligated to give them. So that was significant, and they got to a point going from
They made the
10.8
point
to 6.
This 6.
Is like the
If
floor.
we wouldn't have done that, it would have cost us over double that
Right.
next year.
Right.
And they also gritted their teeth, but they said they weren't gonna need this amount extra next year.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's money well spent. Now, we'll see.
Well, again, for me, I mean, I take all these other things out of the equation and you work them into the budget. For me, the outstanding thing still is Department of Fire and Emergency Services. And for me, that's why I have proposed, what I did with the recordation rate and the property tax rate. You gotta have, again, I know it's as simple as it sounds, and I know I keep repeating myself, but it's that important. You need ambulances, you need EMTs. So with that, I will make a motion to increase the recordation tax rate from $5 to $6.50 per 500, and to increase the property tax rate by 2 pennies.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Well, I have a quick question on this. Just going to go through the whole thing here. So we've talked about it. We talked about it a few weeks ago. And I realize this is a work session, so it's not technically binding. But as we had some conversations over the past couple, months, the conversation was brought up about a resolution we did last January. So by doing this, are you all going to then remove that resolution first, or are you going to do this and remove the resolution later? Because per Mr. Burke's comments, my understanding from what his perspective was, there needed to be a 3-2 vote to remove it to then raise taxes.
I personally, yes, it would take a 3-2 to remove one and then a 3-2 to remove a second. I don't know if I advocate right now doing that. I think this is a good compromise. If we have to do that, I guess we'd have to do that. I don't, we have to
I'm just
balance the
asking from
budget. I hadn't thought
policy and
about it.
procedure.
I mean, I
Thought
have
about it
no,
today.
I have no intent of doing that.
I
mean,
hadn't thought about it. till
yeah.
just
Okay,
now.
I'm just
Exactly.
asking
I just
procedurally.
assumed we needed a 4-1 vote.
Okay, I'm
and
just
I didn't
asking.
think much
Right.
about it.
I was just curious. I know there'd been conversation publicly in a number of the meetings, so I
Yeah,
was
it's been a
just,
bunch of,
was just
I
curious what the
think
thought
we-
process was.
Through the conversations we had months ago, that we agreed that we want to get as close to a 5-0 vote in the work we do. We want to get as strong of a consensus. So I didn't even think about that.
yeah.
Like I said, I agreed with you as you were walking through this process. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about it, now that you say it.
You know, procedurally, and if Tim's watching, he can weigh in if he thinks I'm wrong. First, you're talking about this being non-binding. When we leave here,
Oh,
we do need a vote that is, this is the proposed budget.
yes,
So it's still not the adopted budget, but that has to be an action on your part. I would say you probably don't have to resolve this resolution question now because the proposed budget doesn't raise the taxes. It's just saying this is our intent. I would think you'd need to deal with it before we adopt the budget, though.
so what you're saying is, yeah,
well, why don't we go
the
through?
more important votes when we're really raising taxes is when we adopt the budget, not today.
Yes, that's when it becomes law.
But in turn, you're saying, we need to confirm that this is our budget, so I assumed to raise taxes today was a 4-1 vote.
Why don't we go through this, and if we get there, that's fine. If we don't get there, then we take this off, and we stay here until we
Talk more.
figure out how we get there.
Yep.
And if it goes past 3:30, we stop, we recess, and then we reconvene after whatever time you want to get to a solution. And that could be tonight, that could be tomorrow. And just, to me, I want to make sure that they have enough opportunity to package the decisions we're making. So that, at least that's my thought is, are we going to get there with what's on the board now to move forward? Or are we not going to get there on what the board is and then not move forward?
No. Any more discussion on the motion and the second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Let's take it all off and get back to red.
And I would like, and no offense, I would like to do a vote right now. We don't leave us room till the budget's balanced. This is, crazy. I mean, we sat and talked for 2 hours and did nothing. So what's
Right.
next? Who has a proposal? What don't we want to pay for? We've cut everybody back to last year.
Heidi, can you take us back down to the bottom line, please?
And you took your million out too.
Heidi's million?
So, yeah, so where are we at? Who wants to make a motion to
Okay,
do something?
So I've been through what I'm proposing. If you want to remove the supermajority and vote on the budget, then do it.
That's what you want?
What's,
What motion do you want to make?
okay, I think I've been through my list.
Okay, so let's take out
Several times.
Georgetown Boulevard.
Hold on.
Let's take it out, let's take out PFAS.
Okay.
Let's take out,
All right.
other things. We're still going to be at about a $4 million deficit.
No, we're still at 9.9.
And with,
Oh, and then you want to use one-time money. That's right. So let's lower the operational,
So,
I mean, really, let's just do
all
it.
I'm saying is if it's the intention is to raise, then go ahead and remove the supermajority and vote.
If the intention is to build a cliff by FY '27.
The cliff's already been
We will
built.
not be able to pay for it. We're not going to have the money to pay
well,
for FY
It's
'27
not-
unless we
it's-
do something.
It's not as though I haven't been consistent since this budget session started.
Oh, I
So,
know.
I mean, you can't accuse me of that.
Ridiculous.
Excuse me?
It's crazy, it's ridiculous. You
what's
gotta know,
happened-
hold on a second, you gotta recognize that if you use one-time funds, you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna run out of one-time funds, and you will not be able to balance the budget. And then, when that happens, revenue has to occur, so it's gonna be a large revenue occurrence, or we're gonna stop something. Stop transportation. Stop, all of the nonprofits.
I mean, with all due respect, are you actually lecturing me on using one-time funds to plug deficits? Because you did it.
And I said it was wrong.
board.
How many more times did I
Don't-
say it was
okay,
wrong?
but
It was
I
wrong.
don't- what I
It
don't appre-
was
What I
wrong.
don't appreciate is being lectured constantly, and what I
Oh, my
really
gosh.
resent is the fact that we're lecturing the people of this county
We're not lecturing
constantly
the people
about.
of this county.
We're-
We're
okay,
trying to
can I
balance a
finish?
budget, and you're not willing to
People
balance
in this
the
county
budget.
understand budgets, they understand how much things cost, they understand COLAs, they understand
Right.
increases, they understand raises. They understand all these things, we all do.
Okay.
It's tough choices.
it is.
Oh, my gosh.
It is. Well, no, now, what I wanted to say, if the only way we balance this budget is to do a 3-2 vote to remove it has to be 4-1, and then do a 3-2 vote to remove the 4-1,
Or somebody
I'm
makes a
gonna hear-
proposal.
I'm gonna hear from people, but I tell you what, I think what we're doing is the right thing, and if people wanna condemn me for it, change it to a 1-4 vote, and hell, I'll vote for it, and it'll pass. I don't think we have a lot of choice.
Well, we do. If Commissioner Guerin wants to use one-time funds, then make the motion to do it. In doing that, it takes a 3-2 vote, okay? I'll vote against it, but you have 4 others.
Okay,
And if they
so-
get it, if that's what you want to do, then make that motion.
Okay, so you want me to try to put together my list again?
You
The
do
next-
whatever you want. I'm just saying, if you
Because I've
want to
been
make a
through it.
motion to use one-time funds,
I've been saying these things for the past 6
And-
weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
You have.
you have.
Okay, so
You have.
I've been consistent,
You
you
have.
know what they are, and
And they're not
everybody here said
changing,
no.
they're not changing the bottom line of the budget. PFAS and Georgetown Boulevard don't. We have enough one-time funds to do it. If you want to use one-time funds to knock down the 9.9 million, then make that proposal. Make that motion. You need
Doing-
3-2 vote.
Doing that without additional savings makes no difference. I totally understand that.
Oh,
In fact, even raising taxes without doing some of the things I've suggested probably doesn't make much of a difference. So do what you think is right.
You're not willing
I
to.
didn't, we didn't get elected to be.
You're not willing to.
You-
That's the problem.
No, excuse me, that is completely.
Yeah, it is.
No, that is completely
You're
false.
not willing to make a motion.
That is completely false.
Make a motion.
No.
You're not willing
I
to
have
make a,
been, I have been
make a
saying
motion.
this consistently.
You're being
And
consistent.
so
I've
have
been
I.
consistent.
You're not willing to
And you've
make a
been
motion.
consistent in how you've
You're
handled
not
this budget for the
willing to
past
make
5
a
years.
motion.
So-
I've made motions to change the budget.
Commissioner, you have.
Make a motion
you
to
have
change the
means
budget.
to go ahead and enact your will, go ahead and do it.
I
I've already been
don't
talking about what I
have,
would rather do for
I
the
don't
past 6
have
weeks.
the will to make a motion to changing the tax structure at this point. You can turn your head, I don't want to make it from 4 to 1 to 3 to 2. Okay, if I did, that would have been done 2 months ago. I've made motions that have gone past where we've reduced funds. What motion, out of all of these things that you say we need to do, which motion do you want to make? Make one. Is it Georgetown Boulevard? Is it the 17 positions?
My issue with Georgetown Boulevard is that I don't
Is
think
it
the county should be
PFAS?
paying for it. That's my entire notion about Georgetown Boulevard. I just
It's been
don't
on
think the
master
county should be
plan.
paying for it. I'm not trying to.
It's been on the master
I'm
plan for many, many years.
And I brought it up last year, too.
No, but we're talking like long time
Well, I've only
ago.
been around since last year. In
So
fact, the four
Monroe
of us have only
Ave,
been around
Market
since last
Street,
year.
what about the other,
We've had a lot of
what
discussions
about
about
the
Market.
other streets that the county owns? Should they be taken away too?
I just don't believe that one with a $2 million price tag is something the county should be
Okay, so
paying
let's
for.
take it away.
Oh,
Okay, let's take it away
I've
for now.
already made that motion several times, and
Okay.
it didn't
Sure,
pass.
let's take it away.
Okay, so we're about to
And let's see where,
completely
no, let's
reset-
take it away and let's see where
Okay,
it's
hold
gonna
on a second
change.
then. So we're about to completely reset this entire budget
No,
discussion.
we're
Hold on,
not.
I need some,
See where it's
Let
gonna
me get-
change. Let's
hold on.
take Georgetown Boulevard away.
Okay, go ahead, take it
And
on.
see what the
It
operational
goes into
budget
general
changes.
fund, so now general fund, instead of
Yep,
whatever's in there now, goes up 2 million. And then PFAS. There was a proposal earlier about PFAS. I have said
no,
consistently.
let's see what,
I
let's
have-
see what the operational budget changes.
I have said
Let-
consistently, that
Let's-
my intention was not to blow up the budget, but we had to make some tough decisions this year.
These aren't
Otherwise,
tough.
we're going to be sitting here next year doing the same exact thing.
These aren't tough.
That's all I've been trying to say.
See what it's gonna look like.
I have been making that point, I've been ignored.
See
I
what
don't
it's
take it
gonna look
personally.
like.
No, none of us should.
Let's take a look what it's gonna look like,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
So eliminate the PFAS.
I mean, it's basic math. I don't know
They're
what you're.
both,
No,
no, they're
it's-
both one-time money.
not.
How
It's
can that
one-time-
change the bottom line?
But it goes into general fund, and we would be
It
using
doesn't-
it.
It goes into general fund, it doesn't change the
doesn't
bottom
change
line.
the bottom line.
It goes into fund
I
balance.
understand
That's-
that.
That's not right.
It doesn't change the bottom line's still 10
But if
million.
we don't,
Yeah, that's not right. What she just wrote was not right. Let her fix it.
if we're not going to pay for something, what happens to that money?
It's,
It goes into the fund balance.
It's in the
It doesn't
unassigned
go
fund
into- It's not
balance.
ongoing. It can't pay for anything
gosh.
next year. It's gonna
Yes,
pay for something this year. I know you understand it, but I'm just
so
saying.
let's see what it looks
You
like.
ask and I'm answering.
That's better.
Sorry, I heard it wrong.
That's not better. That's it. Yeah, okay. So those two things are now in there.
I mean, you could,
And you're changing, you want to change COLA to what, 0%? You want to take away everybody's salary?
you can talk,
You want to take away everybody's cost of living adjustment from
and you see
4
how-
to 0? I'm asking.
and you can see how that was added to revenue.
Oh, I know where it's added. I know where it is. I know where it is. It's in the unassigned fund balance. How many times? It's in the unassigned fund balance. So you want to take the unassigned fund balance and cover ongoing costs. That's what you're saying you want to do. In doing that, it doesn't change anything for FY '26, '27 onward, unless you want to do it for '26 and '27.
That-
Really, I mean, I'm asking.
That money goes into revenue. That's what we're using to
No,
pay
It doesn't.
this
It goes
budget.
into the unassigned
You just
fund
saw it.
balance.
Okay.
The unassigned fund balance, think of it as a savings account that you're pulling to put under the checking account. But it doesn't change FY '26 or onward. It'll change FY '25, unless we want to put it on '26, we can. But then it masks '27, and it doesn't make any adjustments, and then '27 is going to end up growing larger, and we're going to have less unassigned fund balance, because that's not going to grow. And if that doesn't grow, we're going to get to a point in FY '28 or '29, because we could do this till '27, maybe even '28, but we're going to get to a point where it's going to get, where we will not be able to use one-time money to balance the budget. And when that happens, we either have to stop something completely or raise revenue to pay for the expenses.
And it's worse than that. We had a fix that had the first 3 years okay. The only reason we're at 9.9 in the red this year is because we held to last year. So in 27, we still want to use 24? You know, how many years can we hold them to last year?
Forgot all about
That,
that.
I'm glad we did it, and it saved us.
Right, I
forget,
forgot we even
700,000,
did that.
But how many years you want to say no raises? And again, I know, I'm a dumb construction guy. I've told companies, you're either growing or you're dying. And when you start conning yourself to use one-time money to do you're dying. It's just a matter, I had a friend of mine, he was Philadelphia, it's almost New Jersey. He
Hurtful.
said, a lot of companies are dying just like that. They might not, it might take 8, 9 years, they just don't know it yet. You know, that's why you don't take one-time money and put it on the bottom line. You just don't do that.
Well, we are. That's the problem is,
I'd rather change the vote from 4 to 1.
no, I mean, you're saying what you want to do. So Georgetown Boulevard, PFAS, you want position, you want to
Hasn't changed
take, you want to
anything.
take COLA and the living, you know, cost of living. I mean, like you said, I didn't have foresight for fire EMS, and I did this the last 4 years. You're right, I didn't, and that's why we had the 10%. And I'm telling you, my foresight is in 2 or 3 years, if we go cost of living again at 0%, we're going to be having to give another 10%.
Nobody's suggesting 0%.
Then what are you
Nobody
suggesting?
ever has.
What are you suggesting? Give me a
You know,
number.
it's interesting because.
Just give me a
I'll
number.
tell you what, the elephant in the room.
Oh, my gosh.
The elephant in the room's EMS, take it back to 24. We'll almost be balanced.
Give a number that you're,
We-
that
we
you're
gotta pay
thinking for
it.
cost of living.
It's worth doing, it's great.
I just
gotta pay.
You're
went
not
through
willing to.
my list.
Give me a number.
I
for
said
cost of-
3.5%. I just
So
said,
3.5%.
were you,
Okay.
oh, hold on a second. So
So
for 6
0.5
weeks,
take
hold
away
on a second.
0.5%.
So for 6 weeks, I've been saying the same thing.
3.5?
And suddenly now it's, hey, Matt, what did you say, Commissioner?
I didn't
Barron?
hear you. I didn't,
I don't, that doesn't fly.
3.5.
That doesn't fly.
3.5?
You've been ignoring me for 6 weeks and now suddenly, hey.
3.5.
I
Is that
said
what you
this
said?
earlier.
3.5.
That's what I
Okay.
said earlier.
So let's go from 4 to
Let me clarify
3.5.
one thing.
I'm
I've
enjoying
been
this.
halfway between you two.
Yeah.
Neither one of you have been ignoring each other.
Okay, well,
So
let's-
really,
this is-
say,
Now,
go from
You've been
4,
talking, and
this is fun. Let's keep going.
go from 4 to 3.5. Now, that will change the operational budget.
All right. Looks like we're not done by a long shot.
Which agencies are we including in that
I guess
reduction?
everybody.
If you want to,
Including the sheriff's office?
if you, no.
Oh, everybody but the sheriff's office.
If you want to,
why
If
are
you-
we excluding anybody? If it's 3.5%, it should be every person.
okay.
I'll take a 3.5% cut, I don't care. If it's a 0.5% cut, it should be across the board. If we feel that that's what those are the people that the taxpayers think
So-
ought to pay,
so-
then it
so
should
we're
be
down
every.
to-
Can we end this temper tantrum, please?
So
Go
we're
ahead
down
and
to
do.
8,834,000.
That's a whole percent, right?
That's a whole percent,
That was a
okay.
That's a half.
Yeah, take down 0.5%, and we'll be down to about 8.9 million. Oh, so you're including everyone now?
Yeah, that's for everyone
Okay.
on your payroll.
So we got COLA, PFAS, Georgetown Boulevard. Foresight, that's just a comment made. that I've already admitted to. So 17 positions, transportation, and one-time funds.
So you had,
It's the three last issues.
no,
Is-
pay, or we had four,
No, we're at 3.5%.
3.5,
Yeah.
okay.
And then we're going to talk about transportation, 17 positions, and one-time funds. And that's it.
Now, transportation, I think we talked this. Can we get rid of that this year with not great impact from state grants and state vehicles and everything we're doing?
I don't think we can. I think it's going to be very complicated, and to think we can pull out the funding without figuring that all out seems optimistic.
And I'm fine if we leave this year alone to do some future years, if that's what we want to do. We had said we were gonna make them justify what they were doing.
Well, let's skip that for a second, just go to 17 positions. So out of those 17 positions, which one do we want to cut? From the staff, we were told two that they suggested as potentially cutting. So on us, what positions, unless we just want to say all 17?
Well, some of those already have offers and people are starting.
We can fire them.
You know which positions those are?
Off the top of my head, no. There are several.
I mean,
Even whatever that left, I mean, it's in the board's hands to cut any position you
Right,
want. So I'm not
exactly.
telling you, you can't
Right.
do it. But we have no basis sitting here for cutting any of those other positions without
I don't
at least
disagree.
additional.
I honestly, I don't disagree. I'm just saying, there's 17 positions, and we can cut any of them. I'm just curious which ones, we said we don't want to cut any fire or EMS or emergency communications. So we're brought down to 17. We already took away, I don't know however many truck drivers. 8 truck drivers plus 2 positions, so we took 10 out of this list away. So let's add another whatever. And I'll get us down to 8,500,000. And then the question is there an appetite to put one-time funds to cover 8.5? I mean, my vote is no, but that's regardless. If there's 3 votes that is yes, then we
Yeah,
can,
It's irresponsible, so my
but, well,
vote's
that's
no.
regardless.
Before we,
My vote's no, but if we get 3 votes to say yes, then we close down and we move forward.
before we go any further, let me ask Commissioners Guerin and Gordon, your objection to the way things were a couple of minutes ago, before the vote, do either of you have issues with increasing the recordation tax? Being that it is the least objectionable, being that it does affect the fewest people possible? Because my thought here is that if we put the 650 back on, and then whatever's left, we cover with one-time funds. It doesn't solve the problem, it gets us through this year, but it doesn't solve the problem
Yeah,
long-term.
It's embarrassing if we use one-time funds of that. I hate to think that 170,000 people think I'm that frickin' stupid. I mean, that is so irresponsible and stupid. And again, no offense, Commissioner Rothstein, I've condemned you guys for doing it. My comments were Ray Charles can see that's stupid.
I'm trying,
But
I
that's not
understand.
an answer.
Like I said, it doesn't address the root problem. I'm trying to find some common ground that we can begin to work from here.
Move EMS back to last year. I mean, if we don't want to pay for stuff, we can't afford it. I just said 100 times, EMS is great, I'm glad they did it, but sooner or later, somebody's got to decide to pay for it.
And I
And I think
justified,
the citizens want it. I told you, I was at the Ag Center with 20 people, any one of them owned more land than all of us in this room. And they said, Raise taxes, stupid. Why are you asking us?
And I justified my support of a tax increase
I
on
know you
fire and
did.
emergency
You
service.
did.
I'm trying to find common
Two of
ground,
us didn't.
and I'm trying to find some common ground for us to move forward on here.
I agree, and that's where I thought we were, and that's why, you know, Commissioner Gordon, when you were having that conversation, that's where I thought you were. So I'm not sure where you were objecting. Was it on recordation, was it on property, was it on both?
Well, I guess that's a valid question. That's
Yeah,
what you're
I
asking.
agree.
Oh, it's a valid
Were
question,
you
but I think,
objecting to the whole concept?
I
or
think,
one
I
of the
think
two?
here's a reality, and I'm not being disagreeable to any of the folks in that meeting you were at, and I understand they own more property than the rest of us, but
Yes.
what about everybody else that doesn't own all that property? That's one of my main concerns, because...
$10 a month, they're gonna all go bankrupt.
I'm
Every
not, I'm
frickin'
not
one of
saying
them.
everybody's gonna go bankrupt. I'm not arguing that with you. My point, though, is we all can sit here in various categories and look at something and go, this doesn't affect me because I've got X amount of income. It does affect somebody else.
Affects me. I don't like my tax bill going up. I don't like gas going up. I don't like groceries going up.
But it allows
Tell you
for
what.
fire, EMS, and
And I
schools.
told one of the Board of Ed members, of course, she agreed to raise taxes, but, I don't wanna bash people, but somebody that can't afford $100 a year, but can afford whatever, like me, go to a bar, like whatever. I mean, there's so many ways that money can be gotten. And that's why I said income tax, because it's a less impact, and a lot of the seniors don't see it, and the people with low enough income don't see it. Some of them get money back. But, yeah, no, I understand.
But so I'll ask again, I mean, do either of you gentlemen have an issue with recordation tax increases? That is on the buying and the selling of homes.
Again, I'm not really sure exactly what's going on here. We've had these discussions for the past 6 weeks. We've all made our proposals. Most of mine didn't fly, didn't get a second.
Most of yours just did fly, and we
Every one of
reduced
them.
by, I think, 200,000.
And it-
So,
Okay, that was within the
Georgetown,
last couple.
PFAS have nothing to do with it.
When I proposed these things during the budget process, they weren't popular, and they didn't make it into the
This
budget.
is the budget process.
We had, excuse me.
It
we
is the
ju-
budget process. They're in there now.
Let me finish.
But
We
they're
just-
in
We
there.
had a vote. You seem to be upset that I voted no.
They're in there.
I voted no.
Okay.
No, vote no for what?
That's
You
the
have that
bottom
right.
line.
And that's why I
That's-
said,
And,
put it back up there,
and there's
take
the-
off the stuff we haven't voted for.
and you have the means to enact the budget that's proposed by a majority of you. Go ahead and do it.
Because you want us to do it so you can vote no, so you're,
So
for some
what?
reason. But,
Oh,
you
don't worry about
2
that.
months ago,
I
well,
didn't-
no, I do worry about it, because
You
2
shouldn't.
months ago, we had the conversation in open admin, and if I felt that it was important then, I would have pushed to vote for it then. But the idea was that we should be looking at this as a consensus, and a
We
larger
argued-
than majority.
I-
But, you know, if you're saying 3-2, just so I can continue to vote no,
Oh, okay.
then, okay,
Okay.
I don't want to go there.
So you're my political advisor now.
No,
All right,
I'm
thank
not.
you.
I'm
We-
not political at all.
I argued
Oh, my
vehemently
gosh.
against changing that 4-1. We did that up in open session several
And we
times, so I don't know
didn't
why you
change it.
took the wrong
And we
impression
didn't
from that.
change it. We didn't change it. I
Well-
listened. We didn't change it.
But you can.
We didn't change it. Just like Georgetown and PFAS don't change the bottom line. It doesn't do
Again,
anything.
this is interesting. We go through an entire process, we give and take, we talk about ideas. Mine don't make it into the budget, so I vote no, and suddenly, man,
What
Commissioner Garin,
have
he's
you
gonna
made-
bankrupt the county.
What have you made to change the bottom line? That's all I want to know, is what motion would you like to make?
I
to change the
propose
bottom line.
these reductions because I want to avoid raising people's taxes at a point in time where they can hardly afford a grocery cart full of damn groceries.
Right.
Sue me, sorry.
So in
That
2
makes me
years,
a
it's gonna
bad
be
commissioner.
larger.
You have
In 2
forgotten.
years, it's going to be larger.
You have, yes, and I said that last year, and I'm saying it again this year, because we are in a difficult situation. I completely understand. I don't think next year gets any easier.
So the taxes are going to be larger. That's the problem. We don't
I
want,
also mentioned during this budget process that if we wanted to raise people's taxes, we should start having that discussion now, and we should tell them exactly what it's going to pay for.
You asked to
I had
do
that
this
discussion
last
the year
year.
before I was elected, so
exactly.
Okay.
I've told people
right.
that. Like I say, I had it at every meeting I've been
I mean,
to.
you can be upset with me for not
No,
voting,
no, I'm not
for
upset
not
with
voting
you.
yes.
What I'm upset about.
Go ahead.
So,
Oh, my
so
God.
you're saying we had everything you said, and then you'll vote for raising taxes? Because you didn't change the bottom line. We still need revenue.
Or do you want to
It
use,
was added, well, I mean, technically, it was added to revenue. It was added to revenue.
I'm sorry.
The money we reduced from the CIP was added to our revenue. If you're going to make that argument that we need revenue to add to the, that's what we would do.
We need ongoing
I
money.
understand. I understand
$9
that.
million.
I understand that. And we don't know what revenue looks like for this year yet. That's the other thing I've been arguing. So all I was trying to argue was, let's go ahead, make some unpopular decisions, fine, and let's see what happens. And you know what? Instead of talking about, again, listen, we're all frustrated. But
Yes.
for the next year or the next 10 months, instead of talking about, how many trucks we're buying during open session, we probably need to be talking about this.
you've been saying
Constantly.
that was last year, that we
No,
wanted,
no.
it was last year, and you said, as soon as July, we're going to have these conversations, and we're going to go through work sessions every time, and nothing changed. Nothing changed from throughout the year. We're still in a position where we either have to, and you said unpopular decisions were made, I'm not sure what's unpopular here, except we're either going to have to use one-time dollars that will adjust FY '25 by law by May 31st, not changing FY '26, reducing the unassigned fund balance, which means we have less at that point. The following year, we could do the same masking by putting unassigned fund balance, but then by FY '27, we're going to be in a position where we will have to be either raising taxes with a significant sticker shock, or we're going to cut something. And I'm not sure what that thing is that would be cut, that we're doing now. So my point is, let's use what's available to us, increasing the necessary revenue. Back when it was changed back in 04, 014, whatever it is, not so dramatically, that'll allow us ongoing funds for FY '25, '26, '27. And you're right, expectations could change where we can get a whole lot better. I don't want to change taxes more than once. So you do it now, and you do it in a way where it's significant without tearing somebody apart, because it's going to get worse if we don't. That's my whole thought, is I didn't have foresight. How many times do I have to say it? Back then, I didn't make the changes back then. Well, now, it's time to do it. And I don't know how else to say it, but, next year's going to be worse. The state didn't raise taxes the way I thought they were going to. Next year, it's going to be much worse. And we're going to be in a world of hurt if we don't do something to allow, one, Carroll Countyans to be served by Carroll County government, maintaining the Carroll County government workforce, which we will not do if we lessen their cost of living. You want foresight, that's my foresight.
Okay, what you just said, your ideas won and mine lost. You won, I lost. I
What
voted
did I
no,
win
you
on?
voted yes.
What I win on? What did I
So
add?
that was the budget that we voted on.
What did I
It
add?
was 3-2.
What did I add?
No. Okay.
What did I win?
You just discussed your reasoning for wanting to raise taxes. You just discussed your reasons for wanting to do what you voted to do.
Nothing's 3-2.
It was a
What are you talking
3-2 vote.
For what?
Did we just vote on a budget for 3-2?
Yeah, but we're not, no,
Okay.
it didn't pass.
It didn't pass because it
Right.
needed to be 4-1, but it was 3-2,
So
right?
No,
Yeah.
It
You
can't,
motioned, he seconded, and you both voted for it, I voted for it, and both
Yeah,
of them
so it
voted
was
against it. It
3-2.
was 3-2,
But it didn't pass because we.
because it had to be 4 to
4-1.
1.
So, yeah, nothing was won.
So what they're both saying is change it to 3-2 and pass it.
I don't want to change it to 3-2.
I understand that, but
so but before we go off on,
I don't think I want to run for commissioner again.
No,
Neither do I.
so, gentlemen, again, do either of you oppose a recordation tax increase? Specifically talking about the recordation tax, you do. So under no circumstances would you agree to a recordation tax
I
increase?
think, Commissioner Guerin, right now, you're saying you don't want to raise any kind of taxes whatsoever, correct? Yeah, that's his position.
Commissioner Gordon?
My concern with the recordation tax, very simply, while it does minimize in some aspects, and I know, I think Commissioner Kyler, you said this a little while ago when we were talking about it, what does that do to the overall housing market, given the inflation rates,
Yeah.
lack of inventory? Does that create a bigger challenge there?
Yeah,
We may not
no,
see- we may
I
not
didn't
see the
say-
income.
No, I didn't say that. I don't think it creates a bigger challenge. I sold four pieces of property this year. Recordation tax would have not stopped any sale.
Okay, maybe it
Most
was,
people, what I said was, can we trust that we're
okay,
going
that's
to
what it
have
was.
that
I
income?
apologize. That
Yeah,
was-
no,
I
but
got you
yeah,
on that.
yeah, we
Okay.
talked that.
Did we put, I'm trying to back up a bit here for a minute, Ted, and I'm trying to remember here. I know we put the sheriff's, what was that, 9 million in for the sheriff's office. Did we put in for the garage, the parking garage? I don't want to touch the sheriff's, I just wanted to see, did we put in for the garage as well?
Well, the garage is already budgeted at $18 million in FY '24.
But you had mentioned there's an additional, I thought there was an additional expenditure we were looking at there.
That's for the headquarters.
Oh, that was just that,
So,
okay.
so we
Okay.
did add 9 million for the headquarters. There was discussion of taking that from the parking garage, but that's not what we
Okay,
ended up doing.
no, okay.
So if you're opposed to the recordation tax, are you for property?
I mean, we don't live in a perfect world. I'd like to figure out how we could get through this without doing any of it. And I'm going to agree with Commissioner Rothstein, and we're not going to get into a heated discussion on this. I agree. If we mask it, we're in trouble. I'm not going to debate that with you. I'm not arguing that. And, you know, we don't want to be $38 million on FY '30. Not debating that at all.
but we also don't want to revisit this in 2 years. We got to figure out how to come up with a solution that we are not nickel and diming Carroll Countyans every 2 to 3 years in taxes. And we also, in saying that, have to come up with a solution that is palatable because of the impact that fire EMS, sheriff's department, the schools that we are providing for that are much more expensive than anyone ever expected. No one expected. Fire EMS, the schools, I mean, the sheriff's department, the vehicle cameras are there. I don't want to take those away. There's a purpose for them. We are the safest county in Maryland because of how we are equipping the sheriff with ongoing dollars. And I don't want to take any of that away from him because of the value it brings. But there's a cost to it. And right now, we have outlived that cost because of fire EMS and schools predominantly, but then it's not just one or the other, it's everything. And we haven't changed our revenue structure in a long time. I did wish I had that foresight and ability to talk about this 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I didn't.
You and Dennis only need 2 more people.
I'll tell you, there were things he said. That was one of them. And, yeah, He got it. He understood the impact of that cost, and he just
Well-
couldn't carry it across the finish line.
Well, I'd like, if we can, who knows if it would pass, I'd like to change it to 3-2 vote, put back what we had up there, take off what we didn't have up there, and we still have, how many times you go out, Ted? 4 times?
5.
5? We still got 5 times of Ted explaining, and none of us are there, so he can blame us however much he wants. And
Doesn't
then
work
we've
that
got
way.
May 6th, where we hear from the public, and if we get crucified that night, maybe we need to try to change something else. But I truly, I'm facetious about take EMS back a year because it's so ridiculous, but we gotta pay for it. And if changing the vote to 3-2 makes that happen, I don't care. Like I say, change it to 1-4, and I'll be the only one to vote for it. And they can string me up on the square. We gotta balance this budget, and I think we just proved PFAS, Georgetown, none of them have anything to do with balancing this budget. And they've been in the budget, they've survived in the budget. We need it in the budget.
Heidi, could you scroll up a little bit and we'll look at, I guess at this point, we have to look at some of the things that we've added over the last couple of weeks and see whether or not removing any of the things that we've added might make a difference. Thank you. Well, we could remove the fleet supervisor and the senior payroll analyst or whatever that is. If you're trying to get us balanced, if we're trying to get back toward some
So,
reserve.
again, I want to,
You're gonna do all that and not find $1 million.
okay, so, yeah, true. I never suggested that we'd balance the budget completely using one-time funds. My intention this entire process was to make as many savings or call them cuts, whatever you want to do, to the point where if we had to do that, it would be somewhat palatable. That was my intention. So I've spent the last, now we're in the 11th hour of the 11th day, and it didn't work. And now, if you want to go and we want to relitigate everything over again, we'd have to go literally starting back on the first day of the budget process.
Yes.
Because I'm pretty certain that's the first day that I started saying no, I started voting no. But I lost. I mean, if you want to look at it that way, I'm not bitter about
I
it.
don't. I'm not into assessing blame on any of it
Okay,
or winning.
and I don't feel
Doesn't
that way at
matter.
all.
I want the citizens of Carroll County to win, none of us.
No,
sitting here.
I appreciate that, and I think they do too. And I think that's important. It's not to lose sight of that, as corny as that might sound. So, I mean, if we're going to start going back in time, I don't know where we start, because we've done so much. But I think I was pretty clear about my intention of doing that.
And I understand that. I personally don't think we can cut enough. I think, again, and we've said it today, we have a great, safe Carroll County. We have a great school system. We're growing a great EMS system. And we can quibble about the people that have left and some of the comments I hear for a hybrid system. I think we're doing awesome. And I hear from the volunteers who are thrilled with what's happening. Like I say, the sheriff's office, it's great. It's great. We can feel safe. The schools, our public works. I've got to say, even the budget office, that's probably, I don't know if you guys drank, I bet you're going to have a couple tonight. I just think, I think we've proven to the public, we aren't overstaffed. We can't cut more money from our school or EMS or the sheriff and keep it viable. We've done, we cut the community college a little. I hated that, but I think it was prudent. The school system kept saying they needed 10.8, and then they said, we can get by with 7, and then we gave them 6. You know, it's, I'm not sure what else we can cut. And I hear the talking points from emails and stuff, and I think it's just like Commissioner Vigliotti said, let's scroll up and see what we can cut. And, you know, it's 100,000, 200,000. We could be here till 10 o'clock tonight, and we ain't gonna get to 9 million. And I just don't know where else we head.
So we have 16 minutes left.
I know.
We either need to resolve this, or we need some plan for what we're going to do after now. I mean, we don't have a choice on.
Oh, I know, I
resolving.
know. And unfortunately, I thought it would come to this because I think we tried as a group, disagreeing at times, to get it down as low as we could get it. And I think we did. And it's just,
Well, we got to say it on the flip side. Is there an appetite for 3 of you to use one-time funds? If there's an appetite for the 3 of you to one-time funds, then someone make a motion to do it and, you know, go forward. If there's a motion to do that. If there's not a motion to do that, then don't make the motion. But it's as straightforward as that. Is there a motion to use one-time funds? I'm not making that motion.
well,
But
and it's not dollars, but we didn't vote on any of the changes that they've done since we did
Right.
not pass taxes, and
okay.
I'm not sure they would pass. So we either need to take them back out or make a motion and keep them in.
To respond to Commissioner Rossi, I don't think anybody had the intention of balancing the budget completely using one-time funds. I thought realistically, though, it seems like, I can only speak for myself, I felt like we were gonna have to use some amount of money to do that, realistically. When the time came, I knew we would probably have to use some of it. I was hoping it would be as less amount of money as possible, just
So-
like you and everybody else.
So with that said, how much?
Yeah,
I mean, really, with
and
that
I'm
said.
like you, I thought
so-
we could somehow get it
Right.
down to 1 or 2 million,
But-
but they took care of that by
We
saying,
can't.
we'll change revenues.
Right.
Where we were, we'd have had to use one-time money, $1.5 million or
So
something.
how much
mean, that's-
is
And I'd have-
palatable? No, I just.
Maybe
But really,
compromise.
just, yeah, exactly. I thought we were gonna get to a compromise as well. So how much is palatable? And then let's look at other course of action to get to the rest. But what would pass a 3-2 vote for one-time funds?
So what if one of my original ideas, the recordation tax, again, I know it's still a tax, I know it's still gonna affect people, but if we raise that to $6.50 or $7, that cuts the deficit in half, and then we use one-time funds to plug, or to bridge the gap across. We're not touching income tax, we're not touching property tax rate. Raising the recordation tax rate cuts the deficit in half, and it does help us with some of the future years. But it also allows us, for the current year, to use one-time funding to bridge the gap to get us to next year.
So what would it look like with 650? It's a 500 by itself. You know, this is the road we went down last year, and we got all the way to this point doing that, and then we had the public hearing, and the day after the public hearing, that went away. So,
Yeah, we're gonna hear grief about recordation, and that's okay. I think at even 650, it's okay, and, there's a lot of things going on in the real estate industry right now with fees and percent they do and nationwide that, recordation fees are relatively minor. They're still another brick on the pile.
I'll put it this way, we go to 7. We put back those Georgetown PFAS, because again, that doesn't change anything. We go back up to 4%, and then we look at one-time funds.
$7 instead of $6.50.
Yeah, and that's palatable for me. And it's not what I want, it's not what I like at all,
So,
but that, just give me a second. Whoever said, I mean, the art of compromise, whatever that is, we got to get somewhere. We owe it, and this, like you said, is the least evasive to Carroll Countyans. I know the realtors are going to be up in arms about this.
and the way the market is right now, limited houses on it,
But
if this keeps 2 houses from selling, that's too many.
This is competitive to Frederick County. I don't know what Howard County recordation transfer is, but regardless, or Balmer County. Let's see what that does. And then we use one-time funds.
So Commissioner Guerin has expressed a disinclination for any tax increase at all, correct? Commissioner Gordon, any thoughts on this?
I'm still there at this point. I'm just trying to figure it out, Joe.
I just don't know
I'm
what else
sorry,
to
didn't hear
cut.
that.
I'm still,
Thinking?
I
Okay.
mean, I'm looking at if there's any other angles we can come up with. I realize
What
that's.
what else would we cut that's been suggested to change the bottom line? The Georgetown PFAS, I do understand it, it just doesn't change the red, and that's where I'm focused.
And what's pay increases at right now?
4,
They're back at 4. Okay.
But we didn't, unlike before, we didn't revise revenue estimates by $1 million, correct? Could we add that in, please?
Well, a question before you add it, are you comfortable adding it when we're reducing fund balance? Because I thought that was the reason they were adding it, is because we weren't making fund balance tighter.
Well, yeah, I'm less comfortable. When I offered that up, it was the last piece of the package that was
Right.
together
Yeah.
at that point, not let's just assume that.
A
So
part of
what
it.
are you least comfortable with, adjusting revenues or taking another $1 million out of fund balance? Because that's what we're down to, it's one or the other. I know.
I don't know if I have a
Well,
good
one's
answer.
more of an assumption. If you change your revenue forecast, that's, you're speculating on that. The fund balance is real numbers. So I would think you'd be more comfortable using the real numbers than, you know what I
We
mean?
don't-
I would think, but,
We don't want to be in January in the middle of a snowstorm saying we've blown our budget. I don't know what, neither one makes me comfortable. The combination doesn't make me comfortable.
So we're still, if we agree on the recordation tax, ultimately, we're still 4.3.
mhm.
Heidi, could you show us the surplus revenue sheet, please? Thank you. So with that includes Georgetown and, would you please add those in?
Oh, yes, it
Oh, they
does
are?
include.
Okay, they are in there? Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
It includes not funding them?
No, it includes
It
funding
includes
them.
funding them.
Oh, okay.
They're-
Yeah,
they're
they're
funded.
not being cut.
Right,
Georgetown isn't part of this anyway.
right.
Okay.
The extra $2 million for PFAS is part of this.
Well, we're halfway,
It's funded with surplus.
Well, if we pull,
we're halfway better than we were last year, because I
But-
think we were
but-
last year 9
But
million.
no, but that's with recordation, yeah.
right,
Yeah, I
if we
know.
include
Well,
recordation.
That's not going to pass a 4-1 right now.
I don't know.
Yes, I was wrong about
I don't know.
It's irrelevant.
that. Sorry, I was wrong about
Is this,
that. Used one-time
Tom,
money.
you're not for this?
That's what he just said.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Just so I want to clarify that total fund balance, that's what it was like an hour ago, right? We didn't take any, okay, we haven't added to that.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
these are the only two changes we
Okay,
have
the
made
last thing we
today.
did was, okay,
Yep,
Yeah, so it's been up and down.
okay.
But
Yeah,
now
you're
it's
right,
back
it's
where
up
it
there. I
was.
should
Yes.
have done that.
And it's good that Heidi can keep up with all this, because otherwise we would have no idea.
Yeah, so what do we want to do? Come back tonight or come back 9, 8, 9
Or
tomorrow?
do we have a decision?
Hmm?
Is there a decision
Well, it's,
on this one?
and it's up to you. You're,
I mean,
you're
Jeff-
getting close to
I mean,
missing your kid.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. So for people who are aware, my son Michael is a senior on the South Carroll lacrosse team, and it's senior night, so.
Yeah, get there.
Certainly want to be there for that. As far as where we are now, I mean, all I can say, I mean, again, commissioner form of government is tough. We all recognize that. We all represent our own districts on this issue of the budget. Gentlemen, I have spoken, and I
Yep,
have voted.
I understand.
And there's not much more I can say.
No, no, no.
And I've spoken ad nauseum about it.
Yep,
And I've made sure to do that, so at the very end here, nobody could accuse me of not telling anybody what I was thinking. I'd been doing that. I wish we weren't in this situation, believe me.
so we either get rid of the 4-1, or we come back,
Well, Commissioner Gordon, are you for this or not?
I'm still hesitant on this. I know it's not what you want to hear, but I am.
Well,
no,
I mean, we got to make a decision.
Yep.
I'm aware of that.
Is there, I mean, is it the fact that it is a tax increase that concerns you? Is it the state of the housing market? I mean, what,
It's a little bit of everything, to be bluntly honest. I mean, I'd prefer we don't raise taxes, which I know none of us want to do. And obviously, you know, we're struggling trying to find, whatever you want to call it, revenue, funds, whatever. And of course, yes, we have everything from blueprint to fire EMS. Nobody's debating what the priorities are. And you know, we can go back and we can look back 20 years, and we all can do that and go, well, we shouldn't have lowered
Yep.
this, or we should have raised it sooner. But, you know, there's been a lot of, I would say, less than desirable decisions made in the last 8, 12 years. I mean, properties were sold, things were flipped. I mean, it just hasn't been ideal. And I realize that'd be one-time funding, but I would hope we'd had a little more of that sitting around than we do.
well, we could reconvene tomorrow morning at 9. I'm not sure we get to an answer today.
Well, yeah, unless we come up with
Well,
an
unless,
answer.
well,
It's gonna,
I don't want to force
mean-
Commissioner Gordon to do something he's not comfortable with. If he needs the night to think about it, or whatever the case may be. I would much rather have a 4-1 consensus, or try to get the
Oh, I
4-1
understand.
consensus on this.
I'd much rather have 5-0, but
Right, same
I'd
here.
much rather have the budget balanced in a financially wise manner.
Is this palatable to you?
The record,
Is this, I know you don't like this, because neither do I.
I'm probably going to vote against it. I don't like recordation going to 7. I think it ought to be 6, and I think property taxes ought to be 2, and I don't think we should use 4 million of one-time money. So
Okay,
I'm probably going to vote against it, but,
Oh, okay, I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is about as far as I'm going to compromise in using one-time funds.
Yeah,
And
but
I
I don't like the
agree, I don't like it
recordation.
either, but,
The recordation raising $1 and $1.25, $1.50, I was, but I thought by reducing property tax to 2, then fine, you know, and, but I just think, you know, we haven't raised property tax since 1997.
Okay, and just, I know this gets confusing to stick with, but I think you two are saying the same thing, or at least at one point were, 2 cents on the property tax, $1 on recordation, and that idea that we would change revenues by $1 million.
Yes, yes,
No
yes.
longer requires
Yes.
one-time money to balance
Yes.
it. That gets you
And
there.
we weren't touching fund balance, and you would change that $1 million, and we were balanced. And,
yeah, I like that, but,
and I'm still, we can change it to 3-2 vote and put that back up there, and we're done. And I understand, you might not even vote for that because you would like it
I would honestly like us to try to reach some kind of consensus
And,
with this.
and that's one of the things I love about this board. That hasn't been how we've been. We've been 3-2 so many times, and I've been one of the two, or I've been one of the three.
Sometimes
And,
I've been one of the
When I
one.
walk out of the room, we made a decision.
I think it's pretty clear that we are not going to reach consensus. If that remains a goal, I don't know how we resolve this.
have,
There's going to be a
yeah.
vote somewhere.
So tomorrow morning, and I can change it, or not change it, but I cannot attend, I have a BMC board meeting, Baltimore Metropolitan Committee, at 9 to 10. So if we reconvene tomorrow, I would like to reconvene at 11, and then just go from there till we're done.
My,
I mean, that's what I can do.
my tomorrow's flexible, I think.
But we all have to, I mean, that's what I'm saying, my calendar
I
is.
do have homework to do before Rhonda flies home from Denver, but, and can we go to the funeral visitation tonight so we don't have to go to the funeral tomorrow?
Funeral tomorrow's at 11 o'clock, the visitation goes till 7
7
o'clock
tonight.
tonight.
That was the only thing I had on my calendar tomorrow that was fixed. So, can everybody meet tomorrow?
And mine's flexible enough.
I can do it.
I am in a bind tomorrow, and it might have to be later in the day that we meet, and I just don't know right now. That's just the way it is. Might have to be later
How
in
do
the
we
day.
want to come to consensus?
I apologize, you're saying you can be here later?
I have to check. It would have to be later in the day, you know, again,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you understand, I mean, I'm supposed to be someplace.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
um,
Like I say, I'm flexible,
Supposed to be at work.
so
Yeah, no, I
if you
got
guys are okay, you can email us and say, I can meet at 2.
Yeah, I mean,
And
if
that'll
it's,
be fine.
if it's gonna be that, it's gonna be later, around 2, probably would be the earliest I could do it.
It doesn't give you guys much time to have this done this week.
This will be challenging.
But if we, it's past 3:30.
Right, and you got a punch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got, yeah.
You got it.
So you're not going to get consensus when you leave,
On that
so you
note,
can go.
you want to take
Yeah,
off?
just go.
Don't miss your kid.
Because we're not going to get consensus,
Yeah,
so
don't
just take
don't
off.
miss your kid.
Okay, yeah.
Mimi's at a wrestling match and she's texting me. I'm gonna be in trouble in a minute. Because I told the world we'd be done at 3:30.
I mean, if we think there's
So-
gonna be a resolution in the next 30 minutes, I'd be willing to stick around for that, but if
My-
we're not,
Yeah.
when we had a vote, I don't know where that vote is.
You don't want taxes, you probably don't want taxes, and you want a 4-to-1 vote. None of that's gonna all happen.
So, with that said, take off the recordation piece. Let's reconvene
Convene tomorrow.
tomorrow, 2 o'clock. I mean, if we get here at 1 PM and we start convening, Mike, if you can get here, then we'll start. But if not, we'll start, on your arrival.
I guess.
Yeah, I
mean,
think you already
is that-
know what I'm gonna say, so you can start if you have to.
Well, the conversation
Just hit the
will
record
start.
button on today's meeting, and
Yeah.
I won't take offense if you
Okay.
start.
We're not gaining anything. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need to take our stuff out of here?